Good evening, Otherworldlies. This is Juliana Angel, your Dark Mask Diva. Recently, Zen the Billionaire Boss made a video, What's the Answers When People Tell Other People to Just Google It. Okay, well, that was my reaction, like, how rude. Alright, but what happens when you ask someone a question? They usually say, well, why don't you just Google it? Alright, well, when you ask somebody a question, half the time when you're asking them the question, aren't you just doing it so you can strike up a conversation? I know half the time when I'm doing that, sometimes I just want their opinion, right? So it's really rude to just tell people to just Google it. So really, I feel like Zen really laid it out really well. So if you want to go to his video, I would highly suggest it, Zen the Billionaire Boss. Please go to his video and check that out, and he'll explain it really well. In the meantime, I'm going to just kind of put my opinions in and, add my 2 cents, okay? Now, when I was a child, Google hadn't been invented yet, right? So nobody said, just Google it. You know what they used to say? Wow, that's a really good question, Juliana. Wow, you're really smart to be asking something like that. So I'd just be looking at them like, well, do you have an answer? And sometimes they would say, go look in the dictionary. Okay, but sometimes there would be a fact, and they'd say, look it up in an encyclopedia, or something like that. Now, when I was a child, I would go try to find who I thought might be the smartest person or the oldest person. Because I figured if somebody was really old or they went to college or something, they probably knew. So I would try to go find the oldest or the most educated person I knew and ask the questions. So they were usually a teacher or somebody really old. And if they didn't know the answer, guess what would happen? I would get really mad, because I'm like, A, you went to school. B, you're a grown-up. C, you're really old. Like, why don't you know that? But I wouldn't come out and say it, because, it's really, really disrespectful. So I wouldn't come out and say it, but I would be thinking it. Like, how are you a grown-up and you don't know that? Like, I know why I don't know, because I'm a kid and I'm supposed to not know that yet. But why don't you know it? And I would get really mad, like, why haven't you learned it yet? You're supposed to be teaching me something. I would get really, really mad. But they wouldn't go look it up for me, and they wouldn't go try to find out. And they wouldn't go ask somebody else for me. So I was constantly searching for answers in my life. Well, what about this? What about that? And it just seemed like other people were not as curious as I was about answers, about things. Well, what are the odds this is going to happen? What if this happened? Or what does this mean? What does it all mean? So I had all these questions about things, whether it was about, nature or science or something like that, and I had all these questions. So sometimes a teacher would know, or, I just sort of thought a grown-up should know something. If a kid had a question, I figured somebody would know. And by the time Google was invented, I was like, oh, thank God. Now I can find answers, right? So then something really annoying happened. I would find a meme that had some kind of information, and you would post the information, and then something would pop up, and I would get in trouble for posting it because it would say, fact checkers say this isn't true. Okay, well, can it just, can I not get a warning? I didn't know that. I just posted it because it was very entertaining. But can I not get in trouble for it? I'm glad that everybody is being so honest now. Ha ha ha. Right? Fact checkers. All right, well, I'm glad everybody's on their job and everything like that. Anyway, but I just remember people didn't know things when I was growing up. But I'm thinking, what happened to everybody sitting around and reasoning? Well, do you think this is it? Could this be it? And people like, what's wrong with people sitting around and trying to figure something out? What's wrong with using logic? What's wrong with saying, well, what do you think about this? What do you think the answer is? Well, if it were me, I think I would do this. If it were me, I think I would do this. What do you say about it? What's your opinion? It's like, why don't people sit around and reason and come up with solutions together? Why don't people want to sit around and make conversation about things? Why aren't things interesting to people anymore? I can understand not getting in other people's business. That's completely logical. But why don't people take an interest in things anymore? Why don't people want to make conversation anymore? That's what perplexes me. I remember as a child, I would come up with actual interesting questions, things that were probing intellectual things that an adult, that might interest an adult. And they would say, wow, you're really intelligent. That's a very intelligent question. But they wouldn't even try to find an answer for me. I mean, I wish Google would have been around then, because I would have gotten out of everyone's hair, and that would have been that would have been a good thing if Google was around when I was a child, because I would have, filled my mind full of all these things I wanted to know. But I probably wouldn't have been as outgoing as I am now, because I was constantly, excuse me, do you know the answer to this? What is this? Or I'd go, or I wouldn't have been at the library as much as I was, looking in books all the time, trying to find the answer to this, that, and the other thing. I went, and I was very inquisitive, and I was always just asking, what is the answer to this? And I was always constantly searching for knowledge. And I was always looking to find the answer to things. I was always asking people, always looking in books. There was no Google back then. And the thing is, how do you know the stuff on Google is the truth? That's just information somebody put down. You don't know. Right? So, yeah, I know Google owns YouTube. I know that. But who puts this stuff down in Google? Right? So, how do you know that stuff is the truth? It's just information. How do you know it's true? Just Google it. That's a really rude thing to say to people. What if they just want to talk to you? What if they just want your opinion? An opinion isn't necessarily the truth. It's just the way somebody feels about something. And they're speaking from their own personal experience. Now, the things I say on my show, they're just my opinion. I could state something that I saw with my own two eyes. But of course, it's my perception. And a lot of people don't like the things I say. And a lot of people decide that they want to unfollow me on social media because they don't like something I've said. And that's okay. Alright, because they don't like my opinion. You don't have to like my opinion. Okay? It's, everybody's different, and if I said something to offend you, it's okay if you don't follow me. It's alright. I mean, you don't need to be rude about it, but that's just what makes everybody different. Alright? And it takes all kinds of people to make the world work. So, if you don't like my opinions, then it's best that you don't follow me instead of try to argue with me, because I'm not going to argue with people. So it's best that you go follow somebody else whose opinions you enjoy, and they resonate with you, and you really, you like their memes, you like their show, you enjoy tuning in every day, and you're going to recommend them instead of just try to be combative. I mean, I would rather you just not let me ruin your day, seriously. But stop telling people to Google things. They're seeking human interaction. And I know I just made a video about letting go of friends that aren't really your friends anymore. Alright, but this is part of making friends. This is part of connecting with other people. When you're just like saying, why don't you Google it? You're like, psh, talk to the hand. You know, you're just telling people to like step off and go kick rocks. Like, why don't you Google it? Maybe I actually thought you were smart enough to know. Maybe I actually valued your opinion. Have you ever stopped to think about that? Maybe I thought you knew. You know, when I was a kid and I would ask a grown-up something, I thought maybe they were smart enough to know. You know, I thought they went to school or something. I thought they went to college. And the thing is, when I was a kid, I gravely thought that grown-ups were smart. And you know what? I found out they weren't. Yeah, that was one of the painful lessons of my childhood. I thought adults were smart, and you know what? They aren't. Just because you're in a grown-up body doesn't mean you learned something. I know that's really scary. There are so many people walking around in adult bodies with undeveloped minds that they just go walking around on autopilot, that they've not expanded their minds, that they just kind of go around every day and just exist, that they've done nothing to really expand their consciousness. They're just walking around, going, you know, walking to the fridge, walking to the bathroom, just walking to their job and doing the same thing day in and day out, just pretending to be nice to people, just pretending to tolerate everybody, but deep down inside, they're not really growing as people. They're not really doing anything to change their lives. They're not really doing anything to help society. They're, you know, they're not really, you know, they have jobs, they don't have careers, there's nothing really special about them. They're the same person they were at 18, except they're aging. And when I was a little kid, I'm just like, this person's a grown-up, but they're just not very smart. And they would have told me to go Google it. So, if you're around an inquisitive child, don't tell them to go Google it. Tell them, let's go find out together. That kid may be making you smarter. Or just don't be all flippant and be, why don't you go Google it? I mean, that's just like so rude. You're just telling that person you don't like them. You're just telling that person you just don't have any manners. Like, seriously, like, you have no home training. Who raised you? Don't tell someone to go Google it. I mean, that's, you know, that's like the people I grew up with. Like, look it up in the dictionary. Go look it up in an encyclopedia. You're just telling someone to leave you alone. You're telling someone you don't like them. You're just basically letting somebody know you're not very smart. So go look at Zen the Billionaire Boss's video about why don't you go Google it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you've ever been told that, I think you already know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. But that's basically people just giving you the brush off. But I think you are the smart person, whether you're seeking for the answers by thinking about it, by asking other people, whether you're Googling it or not. You're asking other people how they feel. You're pondering it yourself. You're looking around you. You're being astute. You're observing things. Okay, but mostly you're asking other people their perspective. And that's what makes you circumspect. That's what makes you smart. All right, and you can Google it. There's nothing wrong with Googling it. But just don't talk to other people like that. It's just really, it's just rude. So that's all I have to say for now. But I love you all, and thank you so much for tuning in, and I appreciate you all. And I will see you in the next content. Good night.